The wind screamed across the mountain like a living thing. It pushed against the walls of the small hut and made the wooden beams shake. Snow fell so thick that Taiho could not see more than 2 steps ahead when he looked out the window. He had lived in this place for 3 years now. A small research station high in the Taebaek Mountains. His job was simple. He watched the weather. He recorded temperatures. He sent his reports to the university in Seoul. But the truth was, he stayed here because he wanted to be alone. 3 years ago, his wife June had died. Cancer. She fought hard. But in the end, she closed her eyes and did not open them again. After that, Taiho could not stay in the city. The apartment they shared was too quiet. Every corner held a memory. So he came here, to the cold and the silence, where the only voice was the wind. Tonight, the wind was angry. Taiho checked his supplies. He had enough food for 2 weeks. Enough wood for the fire. The storm would pass. They always did. He just had to wait. He was putting more wood on the fire when he heard the sound. At first, he thought it was thunder. A deep boom that shook the ground. But thunder did not come with snowstorms. He stood still and listened. Nothing. Just the wind. Then he heard it again. Closer this time. And something else. A high sound. Almost like a scream. Taiho grabbed his heavy coat and his flashlight. He knew he should not go outside. The storm was too strong. But something in that sound made him move. It sounded like fear. It sounded like pain. He pushed open the door, and the wind hit him like a fist. Snow filled his eyes and mouth. He pulled his scarf over his face and walked forward, following the direction of the sound. The flashlight was almost useless. The snow swallowed the light. But then he saw something. A strange glow. Orange and red. Something was burning in the snow. He walked closer and stopped. It was not from this world. A machine sat in the snow. It was broken. Twisted metal. Strange symbols on its surface. Smoke rose from cracks in its body. It was small, maybe the size of a car, but shaped like nothing Taiho had ever seen. The front was open, like something had broken out of it, or someone. Taiho moved his flashlight across the snow. Footprints. Small ones. Going toward the trees. He followed them. He found her behind a fallen tree. She was pressed against the trunk, trying to hide. Her body was shaking hard. At first, Taiho thought she was human, but then he saw her skin. It was pale blue, like winter ice. Her eyes were large and silver, catching the flashlight like mirrors. Along the sides of her face, near her ears, thin membranes moved gently. They changed color as he watched. From blue to purple to a deep, frightened red. She was hurt. Her arm hung at a bad angle. Dark liquid, not quite red, dripped from a cut on her forehead. Her clothes were thin, made for a place much warmer than this mountain. Taiho raised his hand slowly. He did not want to scare her more. "I will not hurt you," he said. She did not understand his words. He could see that. But she understood his movement. And when he took one step closer, she reacted. She screamed. It was not a loud scream. Her voice was weak from cold. But the fear in it was real. She pushed herself back against the tree so hard that bark broke off. Her silver eyes were wide. Her whole body trembled. The membranes on her face turned a dark, angry red. Taiho stopped. He had seen fear before. In animals. In sick patients at the hospital where June had stayed. But this was different. This woman was not just scared of the storm or her injuries. She was scared of him. He looked at himself through her eyes. A tall figure in the dark. A human. Whatever she was, wherever she came from, she knew what humans were. And that knowledge filled her with terror. Taiho sat down in the snow. He made himself small. He put the flashlight on the ground so it pointed up, lighting his face gently. Then he waited. The wind continued to howl. Snow piled on his shoulders. The cold bit into his bones. But he did not move. The alien woman watched him. Minutes passed. 5, 10. Her shaking grew worse. Her skin was turning a darker blue. Taiho knew what that meant. Hypothermia. Her body was shutting down. If she stayed out here much longer, she would die. Slowly, carefully, he took off his coat. He held it out toward her. "Please," he said softly. "You will die in this cold. Let me help you." She stared at the coat, then at him. Her silver eyes were filled with something complex. Fear, yes, but also confusion. Maybe a little hope. She did not take the coat, but she did not scream again either. Taiho stood up slowly. He took one step, then another. She pressed herself against the tree, but she did not run. He moved closer until he could place the coat on the ground, in front of her. Then he stepped back. She looked at him for a long moment. Then, with a shaking hand, she reached out and pulled the coat toward her. She wrapped it around her thin body. It was far too big for her. Taiho pointed toward his hut. The faint light from the window was barely visible through the snow. "Warm," he said. "Safe." She did not move. Taiho began to walk back toward the hut. Every few steps, he looked over his shoulder. She was watching him. After a moment, she stood up. Her legs were weak. She almost fell, but she took one step. Then another. She was following him. The walk back took forever. The wind pushed against them. The snow made each step hard. Twice, the alien woman fell. Each time, Taiho moved to help her. Each time, she flinched away from his hands like his touch would burn her. So he waited. He gave her space. And she got up on her own. When they finally reached the hut, Taiho opened the door. Warm air rushed out. The fire was still burning. He stepped inside and turned to look at her. She stood at the door. Her silver eyes moved around the room, looking at everything, looking for danger. The membranes on her face flickered between colors. Red, purple, blue, red again. Finally, she stepped inside. Taiho closed the door against the storm. The sudden silence was almost shocking. Just the crackle of the fire, the soft moan of wind outside. The alien woman moved to the corner farthest from him. She pressed her back against the wall and slid down to the floor. She pulled his coat tight around her and watched him with those silver eyes. She was inside. She was out of the cold, but she was still terrified. Taiho understood now. Whatever stories her people told about humans, they were not good stories. To her, he was not a rescuer. He was something to survive. He thought about this as he added more wood to the fire. He thought about it as he heated water for tea. He thought about it as he prepared a blanket and set it on the floor, far enough away that she would not feel threatened. Outside, the storm raged on. Inside, two beings from different worlds sat in silence. One was afraid. The other was patient. It was going to be a long night. Yura did not sleep that night. She sat in her corner and watched the human. She had heard the stories since she was a child. Every Vallani had. The humans were a warning, a lesson, a nightmare that parents whispered about when children asked why the galaxy was so careful. They called humans the endurance species, long ago. Before the Vallani joined the Galactic Union, scouts had found Earth. They watched the humans from orbit for years. What they saw made them afraid. The humans lived on a world that tried to kill them every day. Earthquakes shook their cities. Storms drowned their ships. Diseases swept through their populations like fire. And yet they survived. They did not just survive. They grew stronger. They ate poison and called it food. Capsaicin burned their mouths, and they smiled. Alcohol damaged their brains, and they drank it for fun. They kept predators in their homes and called them pets. Wolves became dogs. Wildcats became companions. Creatures that would eat a Valani without thinking sat in human laps and purred. But the most frightening thing about humans was what they did to each other. They fought wars. Not small conflicts. Not quick battles. Wars that lasted years, decades. They killed millions of their own kind. They burned cities. They poisoned land. They created weapons that could destroy their entire planet. And then, when the killing was done, they rebuilt. They made peace. They fell in love with their enemies. They had children, and then they fought again. The galaxy looked at humans and saw something they could not understand. A species that felt everything too deeply. That loved too hard. That hated too much. That refused to die, no matter what the universe threw at them. The Valani were not warriors. They were navigators, scholars. Their bodies were fragile. They could not survive in cold. They could not eat most foods. A wound that a human would ignore could kill a Valani in hours dot. So when Yura's ship was attacked by Korvath pirates, she ran. When her escape pod crashed on this frozen planet, she despaired. And when a human found her in the snow, she knew she was already dead. But the human did not kill her. He sat in the snow and made himself small. He gave her his coat. He led her to warmth. Now he sat across the room, near the fire, and he did not look at her. He read from a small device. Sometimes he wrote things down. He drank something from a cup that smelled strange, but not unpleasant. He did not approach her. Yura watched his every movement. She studied the way he breathed, the way his hands moved, the way he sometimes looked at a picture on the shelf, and his eyes became sad. She looked for signs of danger, signs that the monster inside him was about to wake up. She found nothing. Hours passed. The fire burned low, and the human added more wood. He moved slowly, deliberately, like he was trying not to scare her. Each time he got up, Yura tensed. Each time he sat back down, she relaxed a little. Just a little. The room grew warm. Too warm for a Valani. But Yura was so cold from her time in the snow that the heat felt good. Her shivering slowed. The dark blue color faded from her skin. The membranes on her face stopped flickering so fast that she was exhausted. Her body begged for sleep, but she could not close her eyes. Not with a human so close. Then the human did something strange. He stood up and walked to a small cooking area. He heated something in a pot. A liquid. It smelled like vegetables and salt. He poured it into a small bowl. Then he walked toward her. Yura pressed herself against the wall. Her heart raced. This was it. This was when he would hurt her, but he stopped 3 steps away. He bent down slowly and placed the bowl on the floor. Then he stepped back, all the way back to his place by the fire. He pointed at the bowl, then at his mouth, then at her food. He was giving her food. Yura stared at the bowl. It could be poison. Humans ate things that killed other species. But the smell made her stomach cramp with hunger. She had not eaten in 2 days. She waited. The human went back to his reading. He did not watch her. Slowly, she reached out and pulled the bowl closer. She sniffed it. Vegetables, water, salt, simple things. Things that would not kill her. She drank out the warmth spread through her body. It was the most delicious thing she had ever tasted. Not because it was special, but because she was starving and freezing, and it was warm and safe. When she finished, she looked at the human. He was not watching her. He was looking at the picture on the shelf again, the one with a woman in it. She had dark hair and a kind smile. "June," the human said softly. He touched the picture frame. The sadness in his eyes was deep, old, like a wound that had never healed. Yura knew that look. She had seen it on Valani faces before. It was the look of loss. She did not understand. The story said humans were violent, cold. They fought and killed without feeling. But this human touched a picture with gentle fingers. He spoke a name like it was precious. He sat alone in a hut on a frozen mountain and looked at a ghost with love in his eyes. The fire crackled. Outside, the wind screamed. But inside, everything was quiet. The human put more blankets on the floor. Not close to her, just in the middle of the room. Then he went to his own bed on the far side. He lay down with his back to her. He closed his eyes. Yura stared at him. He was sleeping. Right there, with a stranger in his home. An alien. A creature he had never seen before. And he just closed his eyes and trusted that she would not hurt him. Did he not understand how vulnerable he was? Did he not care? Or maybe he knew something she did not. The hours passed. Yura watched his chest rise and fall. His breathing was slow and steady. He did not move. He did not twitch. He just slept, peaceful and still. Outside, the storm continued to rage. But Yura barely heard it anymore. She was too tired, too confused, too warm. Her eyes began to close. She fought it. She could not sleep. It was not safe, but her body did not listen. The warmth of the fire, the weight of the coat, the silence of the room. They wrapped around her like a blanket. When she finally slept, she dreamed of the human. Not as a monster, just as a man sitting by a fire, touching a picture with sad, gentle hands. She woke to light. Morning had come. The storm had quieted. Snow still fell, but softly now. The wind was just a whisper. Yura looked around the room. The fire was burning bright again. The human was already awake. He sat at a small table, eating something. When he saw her eyes open, he nodded but did not approach. She realized something had changed. She was closer to the fire. Not by much. Just a few feet. But during the night, while she slept, she had moved. Crawled toward the warmth without knowing it. She was no longer in the corner. She was in the middle of the room, and the human had let her sleep. He had not touched her, had not moved her, had not hurt her while she was helpless. Yura sat up slowly. Her body ached. Her arms still hurt from the crash. But she was alive, warm, fed. The human held up a cup. Steam rose from it. He made a drinking motion, then pointed at her with a questioning look on his face. He was asking if she wanted tea. Yura looked at this strange creature. This human who should have been a monster, but gave her food and warmth and safety. Who slept with his back to her and trusted her with his life. She did not understand him. She did not trust him, but she was still alive. And that meant something. Slowly, carefully, she nodded. The human smiled. Just a small smile. Then he poured another cup and placed it on the floor between them. And for the first time since she crashed on this frozen world, Yura felt something other than fear. She felt curious. 3 days passed. The storm came and went in waves. Sometimes the wind was quiet. Sometimes it screamed like a dying animal. But inside the small hut, time moved slowly and gently. Taeho and Yura began to learn each other. Her translation device was damaged. It sat in her hand, crackling and sparking when she tried to use it. Only some words came through. Broken pieces of language. But it was enough. Taeho pointed at himself. Taeho, he said. The device buzzed. Yura heard something like Taeho in her own language. She pointed at herself. Yura, she said. Taeho nodded. He tried to say her name. It came out wrong. Too heavy on the first sound. But she understood. They built language between them like building blocks. Fire. Water. Food. Cold. Warm. Sleep. These were the first words. Simple things. Necessary things. Taiho spoke slowly and clearly. Yura repeated after him. Her voice was soft, musical, not quite like human speech. But Taiho found it pleasant to listen to. She was a navigator. That was what she managed to tell him on the second day. Her people traveled between stars. They mapped the darkness, found safe paths through the void. Your ship, Taiho said, pointing outside. What happened? Yura's face changed. The membranes near her ears turned a dark red. Fear, pain. She spoke in her own language, and the translation device turned her words into broken pieces. Attack, pirates, Korvath, kill, crew, all dead. I run. I fall here. Taiho understood. Her ship had been attacked. Her friends had died. She had escaped in the pod and crashed here by accident. I'm sorry, he said. She looked at him. The red faded from her membranes. She tilted her head, confused. Sorry? What is sorry? Taiho thought about how to explain. It means I feel pain because you feel pain. Your sadness makes me sad too. The translation device crackled. Yura's eyes widened. She stared at him for a long moment. Humans feel pain of others? Yes, we call it empathy. She was quiet after that, thinking. The membranes on her face shifted through colors that Taiho was beginning to recognize. Blue was calm. Purple was thinking. Red was fear or anger. Yellow was something like surprise. On the third day, Yura asked about the picture. She pointed at the shelf. At June's photograph. Woman? Who? Taiho's hands stopped moving. He had been fixing a broken piece of equipment. Now he just held the tool and looked at the floor. My wife, he said. June. Wife is what? A partner. Someone you choose to spend your life with. Someone you love. The translation device hummed. Yura processed the words. Where is she? Taiho set down the tool. He walked to the shelf and picked up the photograph. June smiled at him from the picture. It was taken 3 years ago, before she got sick. She was standing in a garden, laughing at something he had said. She died, Taiho said. 3 years ago. A sickness took her. Yura's membranes shifted to a color he had not seen before. Soft gray, something like sadness. You stay here after she dies. In this cold place, why? Taiho looked at the storm outside the window. The snow was falling hard again. He thought about how to answer. Because I loved her. And when someone you love dies, the pain does not go away. It stays with you. Everywhere I went in the city, I saw her face. Heard her voice. It hurt too much. He turned to look at Yura. Here in the quiet, the pain is easier to carry. I do not forget her. But I can breathe. Yura was silent for a long time. Then she spoke. Vellani do not bond like this. We do not choose one partner. We do not stay together forever. When Vellani die, we are sad. But the sadness does not last long. That sounds easier, Taiho said. Maybe, but also... She paused, searching for words. Also empty. What you describe, staying in pain because love was real. This is strange to me, but also beautiful. Taiho smiled sadly. Humans are strange creatures. Yes, Yura agreed. Very strange. That night, Taiho worked on Yura's translation device. He had tools for repairing his weather equipment. They were not perfect for alien technology, but he was clever with his hands. He opened the small device and looked inside. Strange lights. Tiny circuits he did not recognize. But electricity was electricity. Broken wires were broken wires. He worked for hours. Yura watched him. Sometimes she spoke, telling him what the parts did. Mostly she just watched his hands move. He burned himself on a hot wire. He cursed under his breath and put his finger in his mouth. Yura made a sound of alarm. You are hurt. Taiho looked at his finger. A small red mark. It is nothing. Just a small burn. It will heal. Heal? How long? A few days. Maybe a week. Yura stared at him. Lilani injuries take months to heal. Sometimes years. Taiho went back to work. Humans heal fast. Our bodies are good at fixing themselves. Yura watched him work through the pain like it was nothing. The fear in her eyes was fading. Something else was taking its place. Not trust, not yet. But wondered out an hour later, the translation device hummed to life. Not perfect, but better. Yura's words came through clearer now. You fixed it, she said, amazement in her voice. I tried. It is not perfect. It is enough. She held the device in her hands like it was precious. Then she looked at him. Thank you, Taiho. It was the first time she had said his name. Later that night, the power went out. The wind had knocked down a line somewhere. The lights died. The humming of the machine stopped. The only light was the fire, and it was burning low. Yura made a sound of terror. Taiho turned to see her pressed against the wall, shaking violently. The membranes on her face were bright red, pulsing with fear. Her eyes were wide and unseeing. Yura? What is wrong? She did not answer. She was somewhere else, lost in a memory. Her breathing was fast and shallow. Taiho realized what was happening. The darkness. After her ship was attacked, after her crew died, she had floated in space in a dark escape pod. Alone. Terrified. The darkness was not just dark to her. It was death. He added more wood to the fire. The flames grew. But Yura did not calm down. She was making small sounds. Cries of fear. Taiho did something he had avoided for 3 days. He moved close to her. She flinched when she felt him near. Her body went stiff. But Taiho did not touch her. He sat down beside her, an arm's length away. Close enough to be present. Far enough to not trap her. I am here, he said softly. You are not alone. You are safe. She did not respond. Her breathing was still too fast. Taiho did not know what else to do. So he started talking. He told her about his childhood. About growing up in a small town near these mountains. About his mother who made the best soup. About his father who taught him to fish. About the first time he saw snow and thought the sky was falling. He told her about meeting June, how she laughed at his jokes even when they were not funny. How she convinced him to become a scientist. How she danced in the kitchen when she thought no one was watching. He talked and talked. His voice was low and steady. Not the words that mattered, but the sound. The presence. The proof that she was not alone in the dark. Slowly, Yura's breathing slowed. The red faded from her membranes. Her shaking stopped. Without thinking, Taiho reached out and took her hand. She flinched. He felt her tense, but he did not let go. He held her hand gently, his warm fingers wrapped around her cold ones. I am here, he said again. You are not alone. Yura looked down at their joined hands. Human skin against Valani skin. Warm against cold. Rough against smooth. She did not pull away. They sat like that until the fire burned bright again. Until the power came back on. Until morning light crept through the windows. And when Yura finally spoke, her voice was different. Softer. Less afraid. Taiho? Yes? In my language, we have no word for what you just did. Staying with someone in the dark. Holding them through fear. She paused. How do humans say this? Taiho thought about it. We call it being there for someone. Yura nodded slowly. She looked at their hands, still connected. I think, she said quietly, I am beginning to understand humans. Taiho smiled. We are not so scary? Yura considered this. The membranes on her face shifted to a soft blue. Calm. Peace. "No," she said. "Not scary. Just different. And maybe that is good." Outside, the storm was finally beginning to quiet. But inside the small hut, something new was beginning. Something like friendship. The radio crackled to life on the fifth day. Taeho was making breakfast when he heard it. Static at first. Then sounds. Harsh, growling sounds that were definitely not Korean. Not any human language at all. YUR dropped her cup of tea. The liquid spilled across the floor, but she did not notice. Her face had gone pale. The membranes on her temples turned the darkest red Taeho had ever seen. "What is that?" he asked. Yura's voice was barely a whisper. "Corvette." The word hit Taeho like a punch. "The pirates. The ones who killed her crew. They tracked my pod signal," Yura said. Her hands were shaking. "They are coming. They found me." Taeho moved to the radio. He listened to the growling voices. There were at least 3 of them. They sounded confident, amused, like hunters who had cornered their prey. How long until they get here? Yura calculated in her head. 3 hours. Maybe less. They have fast ships. 3 hours. Taeho looked around his small hut, at his weather equipment, his books, his photographs, his simple life. "Tell me about Corvette," he said. Yura's eyes were wet with tears. "They are mercenaries, hunters, 8 feet tall. Strong armor, weapons that can cut through steel. They kill for money, for fun." She looked at him with desperation. "Taeho, you must leave. Take your things and go down the mountain. They want me, not you. If you are gone when they arrive, maybe they will not follow." Taeho was quiet for a long moment. He looked at the window. The storm had finally stopped. The sun was shining on fresh snow. It was beautiful, peaceful. "No," he said. Yura stared at him. "What?" I said. "No. I am not leaving. You do not understand." Yura grabbed his arm. "Corvette are not like humans. You cannot fight them. No single being can. They are stronger, faster, better armed. They will kill you without thinking." Taeho gently removed her hand from his arm. He held it for a moment, then let go. "Maybe," he said, "but I am still not leaving." "Why?" Yura's voice broke. "Why would you die for me? You do not even know me. I am just an alien who fell into your home." Taeho thought about this question. He thought about June, about all the nights he spent alone in this hut, wondering if life had any meaning anymore. About the past 5 days, watching Yura learn to trust him. Watching her fear slowly fade into something like friendship. 3 years ago, he said, I watched someone I loved die. I could not save her. I tried everything, but in the end, she slipped away. Do you know what that feels like? To be helpless while someone you care about is dying? Yura shook her head. I am not a warrior, Taeho continued. I am a scientist who watches weather. But I know this mountain. I have lived here for 3 years. I know every rock, every cliff, every hidden path. And I know the cold. He looked out the window at the snow. The Corvette, they come from a warm planet, yes? Yura nodded slowly. They cannot survive in extreme cold. Their bodies are made for heat. Taeho smiled. It was not a happy smile. It was the smile of a man who had made a decision. Then they made a mistake coming to my mountain. The next 2 hours were a blur of activity. Taeho worked fast. He knew this land better than anyone. He knew where the ice was thin over deep cracks. He knew where the snow hid dangerous drops. He knew paths that looked safe but led to nowhere. He set traps. Not complex machines. Simple things. A rope that would pull loose snow down a slope. A heating pack placed near unstable ice. A path marked with false footprints leading to a cliff edge. Yura watched him work. She did not understand everything he was doing, but she understood enough. This was not a man preparing to run. This was a man preparing to fight. "Your people," she said quietly. "The stories say you are violent, dangerous, that you fight wars and destroy each other." Taiho nodded, not stopping his work. "But the stories do not explain why you fight. They say you are monsters. But monsters do not fight to protect strangers. They do not risk death for people they barely know." Taiho paused. He looked at her with serious eyes. "We fight because we care too much. Because we love too deeply. Because when someone threatens the people we have decided to protect, something inside us wakes up. Something old. Something that refuses to lose." He finished his work and looked at the sky. A dark shape was descending through the clouds. The Korvath ship. "Hide in the cellar under the floor," he told Yura. "Do not come out, no matter what you hear." Tears ran down her blue cheeks. "Taiho, I will be fine," he said. He did not believe it, but he said it anyway. She reached out and touched his chest, right over his heart. Her hand was cold, but her touch was gentle. "I was wrong about humans," she whispered. "I was so wrong." Then she descended into the cellar, and Taiho sealed the door behind her. The Korvath arrived at sunset. 3 of them. 8 feet tall, just like Yura had said. Their armor was dark metal. Their faces were hidden behind helmets. They carried weapons that hummed with deadly energy. They walked toward the hut like they owned the world. Their movements were confident, casual. They expected no resistance. The first one found the loose snow. Taiho had rigged a small explosive, the kind used to trigger controlled avalanches for research. When the Korvath stepped on the trigger, the snow above him came down like a white wave. He disappeared into the crack beneath, falling into darkness. The other 2 Korvaths stopped. They looked at where their companion had vanished. Then they looked at the hut with new eyes. "The human is clever," one of them growled in its harsh language. Taiho could not understand the words, but he understood the tone. Surprise. Anger. Good. They split up. One went left, one went right. They were being careful now. Hunting. But Taiho knew this mountain. He moved through the snow like a ghost. He had lived in this cold for 3 years. He knew how to walk without leaving tracks. He knew how to use the white landscape to hide. The second Korvath found the heating pack. It was placed next to a thin sheet of ice over a deep pool of freezing water. The heat had weakened the ice. When the Korvath stepped on it, the ground gave way. The alien fell into water so cold it would kill anything not adapted to it in minutes. The Korvath's screams echoed across the mountain as it tried to climb out, but its heavy armor dragged it down. And the cold did the rest. One left. The last Korvath was smarter than the others. It moved slowly. It watched its steps. It did not fall for any traps. And then it found Taiho. The human was crouched behind a rock, a climbing axe in his hands. He had nowhere left to run. The Korvath laughed, a horrible grinding sound. "Clever little human," it said. Its translator turned the words into something Taiho could understand. "You killed my brothers. I will enjoy breaking you." It was faster than Taiho expected. A massive arm swung out and caught him in the chest. He flew backward and crashed into the snow. Pain exploded through his body. He felt ribs crack. The Korvath stalked toward him. "You are broken. You are bleeding. Why do you still stand?" Taiho pushed himself up. Blood ran down his face from a cut on his forehead. His legs shook. His vision blurred, but he stood. "Because she's behind me," he said. The Korvath tilted its head. "She? The Villani? She is nothing. She is cargo. Why do you protect cargo?" Taiho raised his climbing axe. His arms were weak. His body was failing, but his eyes burned with something the Korvath had never seen before. She is not cargo. She is my friend, and you will not touch her. The Korvath laughed again and swung its weapon. Taiho moved, not fast enough to dodge completely. The weapon cut across his shoulder, slicing through cloth and skin. But he used the momentum to get inside the Korvath's guard. He drove the climbing axe into the gap between armor plates at the alien's knee. The Korvath screamed and fell. They fought on the ground. It was ugly, brutal. The Korvath was stronger, but it was hurt and surprised. Taiho was weaker, but he was desperate. He hit. He bit. He clawed. He fought like an animal. The cold helped. Every second in the snow drained the Korvath's strength. Its movements grew slower. Its attacks grew clumsier. Taiho found his axe again. He raised it. The Korvath looked up at him with something like disbelief. Impossible, it whispered. You are just a human. Just one weak human. Taiho brought the axe down. When it was over, he lay in the red-stained snow, breathing hard. His body was broken. He could barely move. The sky above him was turning dark. But he was a live dot, and so was why you were a dot. His consciousness slipped away. He thought about her safe in the cellar. He thought about June's face, smiling at him from across the years. Maybe this was what life was for. Not the quiet moments, not the peaceful days, but the times when everything was terrible and you had to stand anyway. You had to fight anyway. The snow began to fall again, soft and gentle like a blanket. Taiho closed his eyes. Yura waited in the dark cellar for what felt like forever. She heard the sounds of battle above, screams, crashes, the terrible silence that followed. Every second felt like a knife in her heart. She wanted to go up. She wanted to help. But Taiho had told her to stay hidden. And for some reason, she trusted him. When the silence stretched too long, she could not wait any more. She pushed open the cellar door and climbed out. The hut was empty. The door was open, and cold wind blew snow inside. Yura ran outside. She found him in the snow, not far from the hut. He lay on his back, not moving. Blood stained the white ground around him. His coat was torn. His face was pale. For a terrible moment, she thought he was dead. Then she saw his chest move. Just barely. A small rise and fall. He was alive. Yura fell to her knees beside him. She did not know human medicine. She did not know how to fix a human body. But she had to try. She could not let him die. Not after everything he had done for her. She looked around and saw the dead Korvath nearby. Its body was still. Its armor was cracked. Blood that was not red leaked from its wounds. Taiho had one human. 3 Korvath warriors. It should have been impossible. But here was the proof, written in blood on the snow. Yura dragged Taiho back to the hut. He was heavy. Heavier than she expected. Human bodies were dense with muscle and bone. But she managed. She pulled him inside and closed the door against the cold. The next 2 days were the hardest of her life. She built up the fire until the room was almost too hot. She found the first aid supplies in Taiho's cabinets. She cleaned his wounds, wrapped his injuries, and gave him water when he could drink. He drifted in and out of consciousness. Sometimes he spoke, but his words made no sense. He called out names. June, Mom, Dad. People from his past. Ghosts that visited him in his fever dreams. Yura stayed by his side. The entire time, she talked to him even when he could not hear her. She told him about her home world, about the purple oceans and the singing trees. She told him about her childhood, about learning to navigate the stars. She told him about her crew, the friends she had lost. She told him things she had never told anyone. I was afraid of you, she whispered on the first night. When I first saw you in the snow, I thought you were a monster. All my life, I heard stories about humans, about how dangerous you are, how violent, how unpredictable. She touched his hand gently. His skin was hot with fever. But you gave me your coat. You gave me food. You sat in the snow and made yourself small so I would not be afraid. What kind of monster does that? On the second day, his fever broke. Taiho opened his eyes and saw Yura's face above him. Her silver eyes were wet with tears. Her membranes were a soft, worried blue. Yura? His voice was rough, barely a whisper. She laughed. It was a strange sound, relief and joy mixed together. You are awake. You are alive. Taiho tried to sit up. Pain shot through his body, and he fell back with a groan. The Korvath? Dead. All three of them. Yura shook her head in wonder. You killed them. 1 human against 3 Korvath warriors. It should not be possible. Taiho smiled weakly. Humans are stubborn. Yura wiped her eyes. Stubborn? You were almost dead. I spent 2 days trying to keep you alive. Your body was so broken, I thought. She could not finish the sentence. But I am alive, Taiho said. And so are you. That is what matters. Yura helped him drink some water. His hands were too weak to hold the cup, so she held it for him. This small act of care felt important, significant. Why did you do it? She asked. Why did you fight for me? You could have run away. You could have saved yourself. Taiho thought about the question. He remembered the moment he had decided to stay. The strange calm that had come over him. The clarity. When June was dying, he said slowly, I promised myself something. I promised that if I ever had the chance to save someone, really save them, I would not hesitate. I would not let fear stop me. He looked at Yura. You were scared and alone. You crashed into my world, and you needed help. How could I walk away from that? How could I call myself human if I abandoned you? Yura was quiet for a long moment. The membranes on her face shifted through colors. Blue, purple, gray, and then a color Taiho had not seen before. Soft gold. My people have a word, she said. Kirith. It means one who shields another with their own body. One who puts themselves between danger and the innocent. She paused. It is our highest honor. We give it only to the greatest heroes in our history. She placed her hand over Taiho's heart. You are Kirith, Taiho. You are kin to me now, forever. Taiho felt something warm spread through his chest. Something that was not just from the fever. In my language, he said, we just call that being human. 3 days later, a ship appeared in the sky that it was not a Korvath ship. This one was beautiful, smooth and silver, shaped like a bird in flight. It landed in the clearing near the damaged escape pod. Vellani emerged. Tall figures with blue-gray skin and silver eyes. They wore elegant clothes and carried no weapons. They looked at the destroyed Korvath ship, at the bodies in the snow, at the small human hut. They looked at Taiho with amazement and fear. Yura spoke to them in her own language. Taiho could not understand the words, but he understood the tone. She was defending him, explaining what he had done. The other Vellani listened with growing wonder. One of them, an older female with deep gray skin, approached Taiho. She studied him with careful eyes. You are the human who saved our navigator? She asked. Her translator made the words clear. I am. You fought 3 Korvath warriors alone. You were injured badly. Yet you survived. She tilted her head. Why? Taiho looked at Yura. She stood among her people, but her eyes were on him. Because she needed me to, he said simply. The elder Vellani was silent for a long time. Then she reached into her robes and pulled out a small object. It was a crystal, about the size of a coin, with strange symbols carved into its surface. It glowed with a soft inner light. "This is the token of guest right," she said. "In all of Vellani history, it has been given to only 17 beings outside our species. It means you are protected by our people. Forever. No Vellani will ever harm you. Our homes are your homes. Our skies are your skies." She pressed the crystal into Taiho's hand. "You have earned this, human. You have earned this more than anyone I have ever known." Yura came to say goodbye. Her people were waiting at the ship. They needed to leave, to report what had happened, to tell the galaxy about the human who had done the impossible. She stood in front of Taiho, and for a moment, neither of them could speak. "I have to go," she finally said. "My people need me. There is so much to do." Taiho nodded. He had known this moment was coming. "I understand." Yura reached out and touched his chest over his heart, just like she had done before the battle. "You will not be forgotten," she said. "I will tell everyone about you. About the human who sat in the snow to make himself small. About the human who held my hand in the dark. About the human who stood against monsters and refused to fall." Taiho smiled. His eyes were wet, but he did not try to hide it. "And I will tell everyone about the alien who crashed into my hut and taught me that life is worth living again." Yura laughed softly. Then she did something unexpected. She leaned forward and pressed her forehead to his. It was a Vellani gesture. Taiho realized. Something intimate. Something sacred. "Kirith," she whispered. "Kin. Forever." Then she stepped back, turned, and walked toward the ship. Taiho watched her go. He watched the ship rise into the sky. He watched until it was just a silver point among the stars. Then he walked back to his hut. Inside, everything was the same. The fire, the books, the weather equipment, the photographs on the shelf. But there was something new. On the shelf, next to June's picture, sat the Vellani crystal. It glowed softly in the dim room. Taiho picked up June's photograph. He looked at her smiling face. "I met someone," he told her. "An alien. She was scared of me at first, but I think we became friends." He paused. "I think you would have liked her." He set the photograph down next to the crystal. Two pieces of his life. The past and the future. Loss and hope. Outside, the sun was setting. The sky was painted in colors of orange and pink and purple. The snow sparkled like diamonds. Taiho opened the door and stepped outside. For 3 years, he had lived in silence, in grief, in the shadow of death. But now, for the first time in a long time, he felt something new. He felt alive. The stars were coming out, one by one. Somewhere up there, Yura was flying home. Somewhere up there, the galaxy was learning a new story. A story about a human who was not a monster. A story about kindness and courage and love. Taiho smiled. Then he went back inside to make dinner. Life, he decided, was worth living after all.